I always believed betrayal came with warning signs: raised voices, bitter silences, slammed doors. I was wrong. Sometimes betrayal arrives quietly, disguised as family concern, smiling faces, and copied keys you never knew existed. That evening, I stood outside my own house, holding grocery bags that were slowly cutting into my fingers. The porch light was on. The curtains were drawn. I could hear movement inside: footsteps, laughter, the familiar clink of dishes. My family was home. So why wouldn't the key turn? I tried again, jiggled it, pressed harder than necessary, as if force could override confusion. Nothing. The lock felt different, tight, unfamiliar. My stomach tightened with it. I knocked, light at first, then harder. "Hello?" I called. "It's me." The laughter inside stopped. Footsteps approached the door, then retreated. That's when panic crept in, cold and sharp. I rang the bell, once, twice, 3 times. Finally, my sister's voice came through the door, muffled but unmistakable. "Who is it?" For a second, I thought I misheard. "It's me," I said, my voice cracking. "Open the door." There was silence again, then whispering, multiple voices. My mother, my brother, words I couldn't fully catch, but I heard my name. The door finally opened a few inches, chains still on. My sister didn't meet my eyes. "You should have called before coming," she said. I stared at her. "Before coming to my own house?" She swallowed. "We changed the locks." The world tilted. "What?" I laughed nervously, waiting for the punchline. "Why would you do that?" My mother appeared behind her, arms crossed, face stiff with forced calm. "We needed to talk first. There are things you've been hiding." I felt heat rise in my chest. Hiding what? This is my house. My brother stepped into view then, holding a mug I'd bought, standing on a rug I chose, inside walls I paid for. "We found out you weren't being completely honest," he said, "about the ownership." That's when it clicked. Weeks earlier, I'd refused their suggestion to add everyone's names to the property papers. I'd paid every installment, every tax, every repair. But they called it selfish, said family doesn't keep score. Now I understood. "You copied my keys," I said slowly. No one denied it. My sister finally whispered, "We did what we had to do." Something inside me broke, but not loudly. It cracked quietly, settling into something colder, sharper. I set the grocery bags down on the porch. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. "You're locking me out of my own home, over assumptions." My mother's eyes flickered, not with guilt, but calculation. "Until things are sorted," she replied. That night, standing barefoot on the porch I built, I realized something terrifying. They didn't just betray me. They thought they'd already won. But they had no idea what I had already discovered and how badly they would regret this moment. What secret had I uncovered about the house papers that same morning, and why would it turn their confidence into pure fear once revealed? I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my car across the street, watching the house lights flick on and off like nothing had happened, like I wasn't locked out of the life I built. Every laugh drifting from the windows felt deliberate, cruel. They thought this was temporary. They thought pressure would bend me. What they didn't know was that the very morning before this betrayal, I had uncovered something that changed everything. 2 weeks earlier, I'd gone to the land records office for a routine copy of my property file. I wanted to refinance, lower interest, faster payoff. Simple. But when the clerk handed me the folder, her eyebrows knitted together. "Ma'am," she said slowly, "there was an attempted modification request on this property last month." My heart stuttered. Attempted by who? She turned the screen toward me. My brother's name, my mother listed as a witness, my sister's signature. Badly forged. They had tried to file a fraudulent co-ownership claim using an old family agreement that had no legal standing. The only reason it failed was because the notary ID didn't match. The clerk leaned closer and lowered her voice. "If this had gone through," she said, "you could have lost partial control of the house." That was the moment I stopped being confused and started being prepared. Back in my car that night, I pulled the folder from my bag and stared at the stamped rejection notice, the proof, the truth, the betrayal they didn't know I held. Inside the house, they were confident, comfortable. They believed changing the locks made them powerful. I made one call. My cousin Adil answered on the second ring, a property lawyer, quiet, ruthless when needed. I told him, "They locked me out, and I think it's connected to the attempted filing." There was a pause, then his voice hardened. "Send me everything tonight." By sunrise, I had options. I could call the police for illegal lockout. I could file criminal charges for document forgery. I could freeze the property access entirely. But instead, I chose patience. The next afternoon, I returned to the house, not to beg, but to observe. Through the window, I saw my sister sitting at my dining table scrolling on her phone. My brother lounged on the couch like he owned it. My mother supervised everything, confident, in control. I knocked. This time, the door opened fully. My mother smiled. "Have you thought about it?" "Yes," I said calmly. "I have." Her shoulders relaxed. "Good, because we just want fairness." "I agree." They exchanged relieved glances. "I'm willing to discuss shared rights, but first I need access to some documents." My brother smirked. "See, we knew you'd come around." I smiled back, but inside, I was counting. Counting their lies, counting their signatures, counting the exact moment they'd realize this wasn't a negotiation. Because while they thought they were cornering me, I was letting them walk straight into a trap built entirely on their own greed. And tomorrow, they would learn the difference between family pressure and legal consequences. Why did I deliberately hand them a fake agreement to sign? And how would that single signature unravel everything they tried to steal? That evening, I printed 2 sets of documents. One was real, the original property file, untouched, perfectly clean. The other was bait. The fake agreement looked convincing. Legal language, official formatting, even a fake stamp placed exactly where people expect authority to sit. It stated that I was willingly transferring partial residential authority for family harmony. Harmless words, dangerous assumptions. Adil had warned me over the phone, "Don't let them think you're fighting. Let them think you're surrendering." So I did. When I walked back into the house, I carried myself differently. Shoulders low, eyes tired, voice gentle. They noticed immediately. My mother offered tea. My sister smiled like she'd won something. My brother didn't even pretend to hide his satisfaction. "I've been thinking," I said,
placing the folder on the table. "I don't want this to tear us apart." My mother reached for the papers before I even finished. "That's very mature of you." I watched their faces as they skimmed the pages, not reading, just searching for confirmation of victory. "This means we can stay without issues?" my sister asked. "Yes," I said, softly, "as long as we're clear on roles." My brother picked up a pen. "Where do we sign?" That's when I paused, just long enough to feel the room lean toward me. "I want everyone's signature," I said, "so there's no misunderstanding later." My mother hesitated. "All of us?" "It's about trust. Isn't that what family is?" That word, family, worked like a spell. They signed, one by one. My sister first, my brother next, my mother last, pressing hard, leaving an ink groove like certainty carved into paper. I collected the documents calmly, thanked them, and left. That night, I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry. I just slept, for the first time since the lock change. The next morning, the house felt different when I returned. Tense, quiet. My brother stood near the window. My sister whispered urgently to my mother. "What's going on?" I asked. My mother looked up slowly. "Why did a legal notice arrive this morning?" I tilted my head. "What notice?" She slid the envelope across the table. Her hands trembled. "Property fraud inquiry. Illegal lock change. Attempted co-ownership forgery." My sister's face drained of color. "This has to be a mistake." "It's not," I said. "I reported the attempted filing 2 weeks ago." My brother jumped up. "You set us up." "No," I replied evenly. "You set yourselves up. I just stopped protecting you." My mother's voice broke. "You wouldn't do this to your own family." I met her eyes. "You copied my keys. You locked me out. You tried to steal my home." Silence crashed down on us. That's when the final blow landed. "The agreement you signed last night was a declaration acknowledging unauthorized occupancy." My sister stumbled back into a chair. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, standing, "you legally admitted you had no rights here." My phone buzzed. Adil's message. "Eviction approved. Enforcement tomorrow morning." Their world started collapsing in real time. But the regret, that was only just beginning. What happened when authorities arrived at the house, and why did my mother fall to her knees when she realized who had truly lost everything? The knock came at exactly 9:17 a.m. Sharp, professional, final. I stood near the staircase while my family gathered in the living room, confusion etched across their faces. My sister clutched her phone like it could save her. My brother paced. My mother sat stiffly on the sofa, lips pressed into a thin line of disbelief. When I opened the door, 2 officers and a court-appointed enforcement agent stood outside. "Property owner?" the agent asked. "I am," I replied, handing over my ID. My mother gasped. "This is unnecessary," she said, rising quickly. "We're family." The agent didn't look at her. He looked at the papers. "I'm here to enforce a lawful eviction," he said calmly. "Unauthorized occupants must vacate immediately." My sister started crying, loudly, dramatically. "You'd throw us out like criminals?" I didn't answer. My brother stepped forward, voice raised. "This house belongs to all of us morally." The agent finally looked up. "Morally doesn't hold weight in court, sir."
Boxes were brought in, timelines explained, rules laid down, and suddenly the house that once echoed with entitlement filled with panic. My mother turned to me, eyes wide, voice shaking. "You're really doing this?" I nodded. "You already did it to me when you locked me out." Her knees buckled. She grabbed the edge of the table, collapsing into the chair. "I raised you. I sacrificed everything. And I respected that, until you decided my life belonged to you." The enforcement agent cleared his throat. "You have 30 minutes. That's when things got ugly. My sister accused me of manipulation. My brother called me ungrateful. My mother cried and prayed in the same breath. But the law didn't flinch. As they packed, I walked through each room: the living room where they plotted, the kitchen where my sister laughed while I stood locked outside, the bedroom they entered without permission. Every step felt like reclaiming pieces of myself. At the door, my mother turned back one last time. "You'll regret this," she said weakly. I met her gaze. "I already regretted trusting you." The door closed behind them. For the first time in months, the house was silent. I sat on the floor and let the quiet settle into my bones. I thought it would feel like victory. It didn't. It felt like grief. But grief has stages, and this wasn't the end. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Is this the owner of the property?" a male voice asked. "Yes." "This is the bank's legal department. We need to discuss a loan application submitted using your property as collateral." My breath caught. I didn't apply for any loan. There was a pause. "Then you may want to come in tomorrow, because the applicants listed are your family members." I sank onto the couch. They hadn't just tried to take my home, they tried to leverage it. And now the consequences were about to go far beyond eviction. What secret loan had my family attempted using my house, and how would it push them from regret straight into irreversible loss? The bank lobby smelled like disinfectant and anxiety. I sat across from the legal officer while he slid a thick file toward me. My name was printed on the cover in bold letters, "Property Owner." Beneath it, another list appeared. Applicants: my mother, my brother, my sister. Requested amount: a sum large enough to erase years of their debts. "They claimed you had verbally agreed," the officer said, "and submitted photocopies of property documents." My hands clenched. Those documents were never authorized. He nodded. "We noticed inconsistencies. That's why the loan was frozen." Frozen. That single word saved my future, but the damage was already done. "They also submitted copies of your ID," he added carefully. My vision blurred. "That's identity fraud." "Yes, which is why this is now a criminal matter." I walked out of the bank feeling hollow. Every step felt heavier than the last, not because I doubted my actions, but because I finally understood the depth of their betrayal. This wasn't about family disagreement. This was systematic exploitation. When I returned home, I found my sister waiting on the porch. Her eyes were swollen. Her voice cracked. "We didn't mean for it to go this far." I laughed once, short and bitter. "How far did you think fraud would go?" She stepped closer. "Mom said it was temporary, just until things stabilized."
I used my house as collateral, I snapped. That's not temporary, that's theft. She fell silent. Mom arrived minutes later. She looked smaller than I remembered, older, desperate. We were drowning. Debts, pressure. We thought if the family shared responsibility. You didn't ask, you stole, I said. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. That night, I received the official notice. Criminal inquiry opened. All parties summoned. The following week was brutal. My brother lost his job when the investigation surfaced during a background check. My sister's engagement collapsed when her fiancé learned the truth. My mother stopped sleeping altogether. They came to me again and again, crying, begging, promising change. You can stop this, my mother pleaded one night. Just tell them it was a misunderstanding. I looked at her, the woman who taught me right from wrong. No, I said softly, because it wasn't. Court day arrived faster than any of us expected. I didn't speak much. I didn't have to. Documents spoke. Signatures spoke. Security footage spoke. And finally, the judge spoke. Charges were reduced due to first-time offenses, but the consequences remained. Fines, probation, permanent records. As they stood there, heads bowed, regret etched into every line of their faces, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Not because they were punished, but because the truth was finally undeniable. Outside the courtroom, my mother collapsed into tears. You never thought you'd let it go this far, she sobbed. I answered quietly. I never thought you'd go that far in the first place. I walked away alone, but behind me, something else walked out too, their illusion of control. Why did my family's final attempt at reconciliation backfire completely, and what ultimatum forced me to choose between forgiveness and self-respect?
3 weeks passed without a word. No calls, no messages, no surprise visits. The silence felt heavier than the shouting ever did. Then, one afternoon, a neatly folded letter appeared in my mailbox, handwritten, my mother's handwriting, careful, practiced, familiar. She asked to meet, not to argue, just to talk. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a small cafe near the courthouse, the same place she used to take me when I was a child. She arrived early. I could tell by the way she stood when she saw me, hopeful, fragile. She didn't cry this time. I'm sorry, she said immediately, for everything. I waited. She continued, we were wrong, all of us. We let greed and fear blind us. My heart wanted to soften, but experience held it back. Then came the condition. We want to rebuild, she said carefully, but we need you to help us one last time. I frowned. Help how? Withdraw the remaining civil claims, she said. Clear the record. Let us start fresh. There it was. Not remorse, negotiation. You want forgiveness with benefits, I said. Her eyes filled with tears. We're family. I leaned forward. Family doesn't copy keys. Family doesn't lock you out. Family doesn't try to mortgage your future. She flinched. My sister joined us unexpectedly, sliding into the chair beside her. We've lost everything. Jobs, reputation, stability. I met her gaze. You lost trust first. They looked at me like I was cruel, cold.
unforgiving, but I wasn't. I was awake. "I will forgive you," I said slowly, "but I won't erase the truth." My mother's face fell. "Then we can't move on." "No," I replied, "you can't move on pretending nothing happened." I stood to leave. That's when my brother's voice cut through the cafe. "You think you're better than us now?" I turned. "No," I said calmly, "I just refuse to be smaller for you anymore." I walked out. That night, I changed the locks again, this time with reinforced systems, cameras, legal notices posted discreetly, not out of fear, out of clarity. Weeks later, I received a final message from my mother. "I hope one day you understand why we did what we did." I typed back one sentence. "I understand. I just don't accept it." And with that, I let go, not of love, but of illusion. The house felt lighter, stronger, mine. But just when I thought the chapter was closed, a letter arrived from the court, final settlement decision enclosed. I hadn't requested one, which meant something had shifted, quietly, decisively, and whatever it was, it would end this story for good. What did the court's final decision grant me? And why did it force my family to live with consequences far greater than they ever imagined?
The envelope sat unopened on my kitchen counter for hours. I already knew what it contained, at least in pieces: court language, finality, consequences written in ink instead of emotion. Still, my hands trembled when I finally tore it open. The decision was clear. The court granted me exclusive, irrevocable ownership of the property, along with a permanent restraining order against unauthorized access or financial claims tied to my name or assets. Any future attempt would result in immediate arrest. But there was more. The judge ordered my family to publicly withdraw all false claims, repay legal costs, and attend mandatory financial ethics counseling as part of their probation. It wasn't revenge, it was closure. I sat at the table, the same table where they had signed their own undoing, and let the weight of it settle. The house didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt anchored. That afternoon, I walked through every room slowly. The living room where entitlement once lived. The kitchen where laughter mocked me through locked doors. The front porch where I stood barefoot, holding grocery bags and disbelief. I replaced the lock that evening, not because the law required it, but because I wanted the ritual, a physical marker of an emotional boundary. A week later, I ran into my mother unexpectedly at the market. She looked older, not just tired, changed. She didn't approach me, but before leaving, she stopped a few feet away and said quietly, "I should have protected you, not used you." I nodded. "I know." That was all. My sister moved away. My brother took a job far below what he once boasted about. Life didn't end for them, but it humbled them. As for me, I stopped apologizing for my success, stopped explaining my boundaries, stopped confusing loyalty with sacrifice. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sun dip behind the trees, I realized something profound. They tried to take my house, but what they almost took was my sense of self. The locks didn't just keep people out anymore, they kept peace in. I don't hate my family, but I no longer confuse shared blood with shared values. And if they regret anything now, it isn't losing the house, it's realizing too late that I was never the weak one. I was just the quiet one. The end.